This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about how the US government now owns $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. This is a very interesting story that I've been meaning to catch up on that a lot of you have asked about. If you're interested in learning how to make money in both bull and bear markets, or you just want to see what I'm trading or investing in, especially if you want to talk about Bitcoin, be sure to hit that subscribe button. So this is a story from a couple days ago. It turns out the US government, the federal government, has seized more than $1 billion worth of Bitcoin that were originally part of the dark web website, the Silk Road. So let's just rewind quickly and talk about that. This was an online black market that was on the dark web. So you could access it through a Tor browser, and then you could buy and sell things using Bitcoin was the main currency on there. Now, I personally think that the Silk Road gets a lot of bad press, that it was not as bad as many people think. It basically degenerated into an online illegal drug marketplace. The main thing that was sold on it was marijuana, was cannabis. And part of the terms of service, a lot of people don't realize this, is that the terms of service forbid all the really nasty things, stolen credit cards, child pornography, weapons, etc., paid assassinations, these kind of things. So it was set up by a libertarian named Ross Ulbricht, and the idea was to create this completely free marketplace where you could buy or sell anything. And in sort of keeping with the libertarian ideals, it included you could buy or sell anything as long as it did not harm anyone else. You could harm yourself maybe by buying some drug that you shouldn't be taking, but you couldn't do it to harm anyone else. This is, as I said, this was Ross Ulbricht, not a violent guy. He was actually, when he was arrested, he was found in the San Francisco library in the science fiction section. But the law came down very hard on him, probably because what he was doing was just completely outside the system. He was not using U.S. dollars, and he was selling. Obviously, there were lots of other people who were selling marijuana in 2013, in 2011, 2012, 2013. Some of them got off completely scot-free. Some are still in jail, unfortunately. But this was basically a marijuana website. And again, to remind everyone, this is a drug that's still illegal at the federal level in the U.S., but is now legal and encouraged in many, many states. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at this petition to free Ross Ulbricht. I'm not normally into these kind of petitions, but I think this was just a complete travesty of justice. There are a lot of people who are working with him who got very short sentences. Ross Ulbricht got a double life sentence, double life plus 40-year sentence, just for setting up this website that basically allowed people to sell pot to each other. To put that in context, and I am going to get back to the Bitcoin story, but I think this background is necessary. To put this in context, this Ross Ulbricht got 2 life sentences and 40 years without parole. Meanwhile, when we had the great financial crisis, none of these people went to jail. Dick Fold, who is an outright criminal and fraudster, never went to jail. Kerry Killinger, you could just have a whole list of people. And so it's ironic when you read the actual government press release from the Department of Justice talking about the prosecution of Silk Road and the seizure of this Bitcoin. Silk Road was the most notorious online criminal marketplace of its day. So just keep in mind what they were actually selling, and you can obviously have your own opinion on this. But what basically happened was there was a hacker named Individual X, at least that's what the government calls him, who stole approximately 69,370 Bitcoin from Silk Road between May 2012 and April 2013. This was this amount of Bitcoin was obviously worth a lot less back then. Right now, it has a value of a little bit more than $1 billion. Now, how did he steal this? Well, according to the government papers that I've read, he basically hacked in through the Silk Road firewall and was able to take possession of the private keys of the Bitcoin, and then to move the Bitcoin. Again, if you hold the private keys, the Bitcoin is yours. You can move it to wherever you want. So Ross Ulbricht found out about this, tried to get it back, threatened this guy, but then pretty soon Ross Ulbricht was in jail or standing trial. And so the 69,370 Bitcoin basically sat in a wallet, and we've had that address for a long time. It's listed right here. This is the actual public address of the Bitcoin. Everyone knew it was there, and this partially shows how safe Bitcoin is. You know that $1 billion of Bitcoin is just sitting there. $1 billion buys you a lot of very smart hackers. If there were a way to hack Bitcoin, maybe you get your hacker friends together, get some Chinese and Russian and name whatever country you want hackers, and pay them all $500 million, and you've got $500 million for yourself. This is how the incentives work. Bitcoin itself has never been hacked. It's very secure. But what's not secure are these private keys. And Ross Ulbricht lost the keys to this Bitcoin, and the hacker had it. It's been sitting in this wallet for really since 2013. And then what happened on November 3rd, a lot of people have been watching this wallet. They saw most of the Bitcoin, 69,369 Bitcoin, moved out of the wallet. And people were wondering what happened, because everyone knew that these were somehow associated with the Silk Road, or they thought they knew. Parenthetically, I should mention that the price to move this Bitcoin, so people always talk about, especially people altcoin people who are against Bitcoin, they talk about how expensive Bitcoin is, the transaction fees, etc. If you calculate this, it costs approximately $13 to wire, to move $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. I was at the bank recently. It cost me $35 to move $5,000. So the fees here are pretty unbelievable. So these Bitcoin were moved to a new wallet, which is now this wallet. This is presumably a wallet that's controlled by the U.S. federal government, controlled by the Department of Justice. And we can see that the Bitcoin are sitting right here, and they've now been forfeited. Or the government is seeking legal action to actually, the government now controls the Bitcoin, but to say that they actually own it, they filed this court complaint. Now, how did the government get their hands on this Bitcoin? Well, it looks like some of these Bitcoin 101 of these Bitcoin were transferred to a now defunct exchange called BTC-e, which was a little bit notorious. The operators were indicted in 2017, and as this happened, the speculation is that the IRS or the Department of Justice were able to get individual X's account records. So they knew the Bitcoin were relayed to Silk Road. They saw, and once BTC-e fell down, was taken down, they were able to get access to the customer records and link it to an actual individual. I thought that BTC-e was non-KYC, know your own customer, but somehow this is at least how they think they got their hands on individual X. And so once that happened, presumably the government cannot take your Bitcoin from you, but what they can do is they can send federal agents and pick you up and say, hey, by the way, we know who you are, we know what you've done, please give us your private key. And we don't really know the circumstances around this, whether this individual X was tortured or threatened with legal action, or even drugged and tortured. We don't have any idea of knowing, but the government somehow was able to take control of this Bitcoin. So a lot of people have been asking, what are the implications for me? Can the government take my Bitcoin? Can the federal government, the U.S. government? Well, if you're like me, you've been buying your Bitcoin using a KYC service like Coinbase or Gemini or Kraken, where you have to give them a copy of your driver's license and your social security number and all your personal information. They know who you are. They know that you've bought Bitcoin. They've seen the US dollars come in and the Bitcoin, and then they've seen the Bitcoin left. And all this information is obviously turned over to the IRS at the end of every year. I haven't found a way to buy Bitcoin outside of the official system. I think the whole official system is moving towards allowing Bitcoin. Obviously, PayPal is going to offer a Bitcoin product now. Square already offers it through Cash App, etc. This is becoming more mainstream. That being said, obviously, if you've obtained your Bitcoin illegally, or if you somehow become an enemy of the state, I don't think this is a problem right now in the U.S. We've obviously seen a lot of curtailment of free speech and a lot more centralized regulation. At some point, this could become a problem because the government knows that, and even on your tax return this year, you're going to have to check a box. Do you own any cryptocurrency? Have you ever bought any cryptocurrency? Something like that. And so the government knows who owns Bitcoin at this point. And I think the government is still fairly not that interested in Bitcoin. There's kind of a situation of benign neglect here. And so it's not a danger. Ultimately, the government can take your car, they can take your children, they can take your land if they're not a nice government. We still have certain freedoms in the U.S. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. But I think this is an interesting story. And I think it's important for people to realize that the government didn't just go in and take the Bitcoin they needed. The individual X, the hacker, obviously had to turn over his private keys to move the Bitcoin. So what will happen is Bitcoin eventually, presumably, it'll just be sold, dribbled out on the free market. Or I like to fantasize that somehow it'll end up at the Federal Reserve. It'll be moved over there to their balance sheet. Probably not anytime soon. In the meantime, I thought that I would link you to an article by Jameson Lopp, which is a great article, How to Protect Your Bitcoin from $5 wrench attacks. And it sort of begins with this cartoon where a guy has encrypted his laptop and he's using all this complicated tech to secure his Bitcoin. And then this is what he imagines is going to happen, where someone steals his laptop and can't hack into it. But what actually happens is someone comes with a $5 wrench that they just purchased at Home Depot. They quickly drug him, they inject him with something, they start beating him with the wrench until he turns over his private keys or his seed recovery phrase. And so this is definitely something to think about, especially as Bitcoin becomes more valuable over time. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next video.